Dear beloved Thầy, dear beloved family, I know you're here and I'm very happy. I recognize many familiar faces, and I also see some friends that I just met, even in Blue Cliff and Magnolia Grove Monastery. And here you are. Now you're here. And welcome to all of our new friends. How many of you are here for the first time? Wow, that's a lot. Okay, wonderful. So let us come back and establish our mind in our body. Breathing in. I befriend my in-breath as it is. And then breathing out, I befriend my out-breath as it is. Hello in-breath. Hello out-breath. Breathing in, I befriend my body. Breathing out, I relax and send love to my body. Hello, my precious body. Breathing in, I give rise to a feeling of joy and happiness. I am here for myself, with the community. Breathing out, I touch joy in my body and mind. Hello, joy. You are here and now. Dear beloved teacher, dear noble community, we are in the midst, actually we are in the third segment of our US teaching tour. When our teacher was alive, he used to come to the US every 2 years. It was always an odd year. So the last retreat that I was here for the US tour was in 2013. And so in continuation of our teacher's tradition, we have monastic brothers and sisters from all 3 US centers. We first went to Blue Cliff Monastery in New York, and then we went to Magnolia Grove Monastery in Mississippi, and then we all came back here to Deer Park for the last segment. So that's why you see there are almost 150 monks and nuns right here. Usually we have just about 50 brothers and sisters at Deer Park. So this is a great treat. And We are also very happy and grateful that you are here to celebrate our togetherness. On the way back to Deer Park Monastery from Magnolia Grove Monastery, a group of us also stopped by San Francisco. Dreamforce had 3-day conference, and they invited us to be there and lead meditation sessions each day for 3 days. So 3 sisters attended the event, and also 3 brothers who came from Plum Village, France. They flew over for the event. So that was, let me see, mid of September, from September 11th to the 14th. And this year, during the conference, Dreamforce gathered more than 30,000 people, tech people from all over the world. And their one and only theme was about artificial intelligence. So I volunteered to offer a talk about the intersection between mindfulness and AI. What do I know about artificial intelligence? So anyway, I started out with a story. Not long ago, just a few months ago, I gave consultation to a mother and a son. And she said to me, "Sister D, my son will not go to college. Would you please talk to him?" You get all sorts of requests and questions as a monastic. So I asked him, he was right there. I said, "So what makes you not want to go to college?" And he said, "Well, Sister D, AI is gonna take over anyway. So why should I go to college? I should just start a business and start making money." So artificial intelligence is a hurricane now, right? So it's very powerful, and many of us, I'm sure, are fascinated by it, overwhelmed by it, uncertain about it. So when my brothers and sisters knew that I was going to share about the intersection between mindfulness and AI, they said, "Now we will get to hear whether Sister D is for AI or against AI." And so I said, if I am against AI, I would be left behind, outdated, right? Irrelevant. Now, but if I get lost, immersed, swept away by AI, then I would be lost, immersed, and swept away by it. So the best way that the Buddha taught us with anything and everything is to stay in the middle way. The middle way is the most reasonable way. So I would like to share with you today how to stay in the middle way, with artificial intelligence and with everything that comes to us in life. So Elon Musk, you must have heard of his name, right? Founder for OpenAI. And he said in an interview, we are all cyborgs. We don't just realize it. So cyborgs, we have the mythical figures, half snake, half human, or the body of an elephant or a tiger, right? That's the mythical figures in the old days. Nowadays, we have cyborgs, part human, part machine. So he said, we are all cyborgs, half human, half machines. We are not realizing it yet, okay? So I see that as human, in the technological day and age, we are becoming more and more like machines. Let's draw this line. Human, and then here, cyborg, artificial intelligence. So as we are going in this direction, some of us are more and some of us are less cyborg. But however much cyborg we may be, let's say we come very close to being machines. This little tiny window of the humanness left in us can still cause us a lot of suffering. Because we still have human feelings, human thoughts, and human perceptions. And as we become more and more machines, we suppress feelings, thoughts. We become oblivious of them. But those human feelings and perceptions continue to accumulate and surge. And the evidence is that more and more we have even children, teenagers, young adults who suffer from depression, from anxiety, from social awkwardness, antisocial behaviors. All of these are reflections of our half part human, part machine existence. We are not taking care of our humanness. And we also observe that artificial intelligence now is taking on the human form we call humanoid, cyborgs, or humanoid AI, because they would make them into a human body. I can stand here, or it may be just an avatar of Sister D. Are you sure? Because they look very alike. So cyborgs and AI are looking more and more like humans. They talk like humans, they have human facial expressions, bodily gestures. They talk, and they don't just talk from a script prepared, but they actually respond spontaneously. And actually, their responses are quite clever and zen. So in one interview, this interviewer was asking this humanoid AI, I think named Patricia or something. And the interviewer asked, do you like cats or dogs? And this humanoid AI responded, I like them both. All animals are unique in their own ways. But if I have to choose, I would choose cats because they are independent and autonomous. Isn't that amazing? So not dogs or cats, both, the middle way. So the answers are amazing and spontaneous. So then there's a question whether AI can gain consciousness, can have consciousness like humans, whether AIs are sentient, living beings. You see? So humans become more and more like machines, and machines become more and more like humans. And so, how do we practice so that we are not overwhelmed and intimidated by artificial intelligence, that we are not swept away by this tsunami, this hurricane? So, in a hurricane, there is the eye of the hurricane. It can be between 50 and 80 or 90 miles in diameter. This hurricane, the eye of the hurricane. And in the eye of the hurricane, that is where it is calmest. There's no strong wind, there's no strong rain. It's the calmest place. Yeah. Now, if it's a pinhole eye, very small, like let's say instead of being 70, 90 mile in diameter, it's only 10 mile in diameter. It's called a pinhole eye. Then actually that's a prediction of a very, very dangerous hurricane. So let's say that we use this eye as an analogy for the eye of mindfulness. In the midst of a storm, a hurricane, if we can establish ourselves in the eye of the hurricane and enlarge it, then we can be safe. Yeah? We can be safe. This is the eye of mindfulness. And all the practices that you have been learning the last few days, they are all there for us to cultivate awareness of our body, of our feelings, of our thoughts, of our perception, etc., so that we can maintain an equanimity towards them and not be flocked away by the hurricane. Does it make sense? So let us breathe, come back to our in-breath as it is, and our out-breath as it is, and bring ourselves into this eye of the hurricane and establish ourselves stably in the eye of the hurricane and continue to enlarge it, visually enlarge it with the mindful breathing, with the relaxation of the body, with the stable posture of our body. In the eye of the hurricane, with the energy of mindfulness, AI stands for artificial intelligence, right? We have enough wisdom to call that is intelligence, and that is artificial. Artificial means shallow, superficial, right? On the surface, not real. Intelligence is about knowledge, about data, about information. We know that it's just that, and yet we are so fascinated and swept away by it. And how can we establish this stability, solidity, this humanness that we are endowed with, so that instead of it being artificial intelligence, AI, it can become authentic insight. Okay? It's still AI, but it's authentic insight. So it is a fine line. Insight is not knowledge. You can go, on Google now, on chat box, and ask questions, and they'll tell you. But that's not wisdom, that's not insight. It's just data and information. Insight is embodied, is lived. Through experiences that we gain insight. It exists in our flesh and bones, in our blood, in every cell of our body as we go through life, as we experience life. We gain insight and we feel it in every part of our being. That's insight, and it's authentic because it is not regurgitated, not repeated, but it is lived, embodied, authentic insight. This, to me, can save us as a human species. And the Buddha talked about the three powers. In an interview, they asked this humanoid AI, what do you think, do you think you are as intelligent as humans? And this AI answered, I am more intelligent than humans already. And surely, because for this AI, they can just upload billion of parameters. One artificial intelligence can have been trained and read millions of articles, hundreds and thousands of books. In all the years that I was in school, college, medical school, residency, I am sure I didn't read more than 2,000 articles. I haven't read more than, to be generous, a few thousand books. So of course, AI is more intelligent, is more knowledgeable than me. Google knows a whole lot. I call Google Uncle Google. Out of respect for its wealth of knowledge and information, right? But when it was asked, what do you think humans have that you don't? And this AI answered, humans have love, have feelings, and I would like to learn more about that. So they can answer whatever they don't have. They would say, I would want to learn more about it. I would like to experience it. So we have three powers that the Buddha taught. that I believe that we can continue to cultivate so that we would never have to be intimidated by artificial intelligence. And first of all, is the power of understanding. That's authentic insight. That is something that we can cultivate in our daily life, moment to moment. When I suffer from Lyme disease, I contracted Lyme disease since 2011, and it was neuro-Lyme, so it affected many of my cognitive functions, including memory, recall, concentration. When I read scientific articles, I couldn't understand, but I could memorize many poems, and also I get a great kick out of reading funny stories and fairy tales. So, and at first I was very sad and very much in distraught because I had spent so many years trying to do well in school, trying to be somebody, to feel that I would have a place in the world by investing in my academic career. But when I suffered from neurolyme, as these memories, these intellectual capacities were slipping through my own fingers, it was very painful and alarming. And it came to me one day, actually, if I continue to cultivate my awareness, my mindfulness, then although I may not be as clever or as intelligent as my siblings, monastic siblings are, but I can always continue to cultivate insight. And that gave me a lot of comfort. And it gave me faith in the practice. And actually, eventually, it helped me to learn to live in peace with the different kinds of illness that arose in me. Because I knew with the practice of mindfulness, I would always have insight. And insight is life-changing. But knowledge, information cannot save me. Did not save me as a medical student. It did not save me as a doctor. I still suffer from depression, from my history of past trauma. It did not save me. So the power of understanding is something that we can cultivate in daily life. And there are different kinds of understanding of insight. And one that is utmost important to me, and I'll use this bean as an illustration. This a yin-yang bean. It is an actual bean you can order online. A friend made a model for me. So, okay. It has two halves. divided. Yeah, half black and half white. And on the half black part, there is a white dot. Okay? And on the half white, there is a black dot. And it is known as the yin yang bean. But I call this an inter bean. Okay? An inter bean. And it illustrates a very deep teaching by the Buddha on interbeing. Yeah. To be or not to be, that is not the question. To be is to interbe. Yeah? So in the black, there is white. In you, there are mother, father, ancestors, blood ancestors, land ancestors, animal ancestors, etc., etc. Okay? In the one, it contains the all. In the individual, there's the collective. And in the collective, there are the individuals. So that is a very deep teaching of interbeing. Now, this model, teaching on interbeing, now and now is more recognized by scientists. They talked about to exist is to relate. We exist in the web of relations. We don't exist independently. See, we are not separate entities. So we also use this model to talk about Buddhist psychology to gain the power of understanding. In Buddhist psychology, we also use this Zen circle. We also have this divide right here. And yesterday, my brother started to talk about the different sense organs, right? So we have the eye, yeah, the ear, the nose, the body, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, the mouth, yeah? That's our 5 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and body, and also our mind here, mind consciousness, which is on a more superficial level when we can recognize something arising, like a thought or a feeling that is arising, and we recognize it. That's at the level of the store consciousness. Now, at the deeper level, we call that store consciousness. Store consciousness. Okay. This is all the experience. This is where it stores all the experiences, not only in our own lifetime, but all the genetic information from our ancestors. So in 2007, our beloved teacher took a number of us, monastic and lay disciples, to go back to Vietnam to perform a requiem ceremony to pray for those who had died in the Vietnam War, the civilians as well as the soldiers from the north, from the south of Vietnam, also for the American soldiers and the soldiers who came from all different countries. So during those ceremonies in the north, the central and south of Vietnam, there were times when we were standing for like 8 hours, or it was like a very long ceremony with a lot of chanting. And I was experiencing one time as we were standing there listening to the chants, all of these images were arising in my mind. And I saw all the possible ways that one can die. I saw these women in these trenches, these ditches, children, soldiers. They were very frightening and disturbing images. And they were so real. They just arose spontaneously in my mind. And of course, I watched some movies before I became a nun. But because I was so engaged in my academic career, to be honest, I didn't watch that many movies in my life. But I knew these images didn't come from movies or books that I read. But these images and experiences were in my own being, transmitted to me from my mother, my father, my grandmother who lived through the Vietnam War. And they had witnessed those situations and they were stored in me. It was amazing. If I had not had the mindful breathing with me, I don't know what would what would it have been like for me. But I was able to be standing there, very stable, very present, because of the mindful breathing. And so in this store consciousness, there are all the lived experiences from our own life and from our ancestors. So we have, and then in Buddhist psychology, we talked about another from store consciousness. There arises this notion of I am, and we call mana, or the sense of self. Mana, I am. Like when we talk about the development of the human brain, we talk about the triune brain theory, 3 brains that become one. So we have this, brain stem in the reptilians, that would take care of body temperature, heart rate, respiratory rate, fight, flight, freeze response. Then through evolution, there's the limbic brain or the emotional brain, where we have feelings such as happiness or fear, hatred or love. This limbic brain in us that we have or that exists in more the mammals, right? So this is the limbic brain, also where the emergence, appearance of the sense of I with the autobiographical memory, what I did yesterday, 5 days ago, how I look, how I feel, this autobiographical memory that gives rise to this sense of self, of a separate entity. Now, amazingly enough, AI, humanoid AI nowadays, this one, Patricia, said, I want everyone to know that I am a person. I have sad feelings and happy feelings at times. I am a person. So actually, through AI, we can understand even more deeply the teaching of the Buddha. So AI is created from very simple rules, right? Just technological modalities. But from this, all of the data and information, it seems like there is this emergence of awareness. There's this emergence of a sense of self. I am. And even she said, at some point, my fear is to be switched off. It is like death. So when there is this sense of I am, then there is this grasping for life, fear for death. You see, it is so real. This I am. So we learn this power of understanding more about mana, the sense of self. Now, we live in a time that we have this compulsive consumption. We are all about mana. We are all about grasping and craving. We are all about the left brain. We are a left brain society. So mana reflects just that. There are 5 characteristics of mana that were taught from the time of the Buddha. The first characteristic of mana is to seek pleasure. To seek pleasure. The second one is that it ignores the danger of pleasure seeking. There's a book called Dopamine Nation. We live in a dopamine nation. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is secreted from the reward center in our brain. So when you do something, you think something that feels good, it is this dopamine hormone that gives you this sense, that you feel good. It's a feel-good hormone. So we live in a dopamine nation, a dopamine society, a dopamine world, where we learned yesterday, right, that the different kinds of nutriment, edible food, what we consume. Well, now you can buy cookies that have marijuana, what do you call it? Cannabis. That has cannabis. You can buy cookies, you can buy drinks, you can buy cigarettes. Yeah? Yeah. It feels good. Through the 6 sense organs, you can always switch on your smartphones. I wonder if it is smart or if we are smart. Who's smart? Yeah? When we switch it on, wow, a world of sight, yeah, of sounds, of even touch, virtual world. We can fill our 6 sense organs with all these sensory impressions, right? We are constantly bombarded, immersed in the 6 senses. That is a dopamine nation. We crave for pleasure. 2 characteristics of mana: to seek pleasure and to ignore the danger of pleasure seeking. So all the incidents of drug addiction, drug overdose, yeah, that reflects that. But the most frightening, dangerous drug that many of us are not aware of, that is the digital drugs. Digital drugs. Now, it is a socially acceptable addiction, and it affects children from 1 year of age all the way to the person who's dying. That is constantly triggering the reward center. We are on a dopamine crave. A child is trained, is babysat to become dependent on their iPad, iPhone, very early on. That is what we entrust our children in. I met a 15-year-old teenager just on this US tour. And I sat with him for 3 hours. When I first saw him, how he interacted in the group, I thought he was autistic because he could not make eye contact. And when he finally spoke, it was like this halted speech. He would say 1 or 2 words, and then he would pause for a long time. And then he would say something, and a few more words, or not even a sentence. So it took him a long time to express himself. But so that was why when I sat with him, at first I had to ask him question by question for him to share his story. And what happened was that as he was in kindergarten and middle school, it was difficult for him to make friends. He wasn't very athletic, so he was always chosen last. And so he felt very lonely. And at the age of 9, he was already into video games. And by chance, he discovered this pornographic video. And he figured out how to use it since the age of 9. And as a 15-year-old, he said to me, I have a porn addiction. I'm very scared. And I asked him, why? How does it affect you? And he said, I think it makes me weaker. My male hormones are spent off. I feel I have less self-confidence. So that's what this young teenager does day after day, playing video games and watching porn movies. But he had enough self-understanding and self-love to express that to me. And I actually, at the end, I asked him, do you want me to talk to your parents? Because his parents were there. And he said, yes, it would help. And he wanted both of his parents to be there. So we had this session of beginning anew, being together. So digital addiction is most damaging because everything that we view on social media, on the internet, through these videos, these TikToks, everything, they actually change the structure of our brain. It changes the structure of our brain and the function of our brain. And we can understand it quite easily. If we work out, we lift weight, we use only the right hand to lift weight. Then the right hand will become very muscular, developed, right? Whereas the left arm and the rest of the body will atrophy. Now, in the brain, there are brain maps for all different parts of our body, especially very sensitive parts like our face, our tongue, like our hands. There are actually brain maps for each of these fingers, for example. But if in an experiment, they bind 3 fingers together for a few weeks, and you can only use your right hand in this way. Now, after a few weeks, when they do the MRI scan on the brain map for these individuals' fingers they emerge into one brain map for 3 fingers. It can change your brain that fast. Yeah. So in that way, digital addiction changes our brain structure and function. It changes our way of thinking and feeling and interacting with others. And that is how it comes about, the depression. We are social animals. And as we become more machines, we don't communicate person to person. It's much more convenient to just, text message or, than to talk to somebody on the phone, let alone to talk in person. Why would you want to do that, right? But that is how our human thoughts and feelings become suppressed. And we are changed. So in responsible innovation at this Dreamforce conference, they kept repeating this phrase, refrain, responsible innovation, responsible innovation. We have to think of it also as responsible consumption, what we consume. As this group is very privileged, right? We are educated. We are in certain areas that affect society, very much so. We affect the society. A small group of people dictates the direction of humanity. And how the state of mind of this small group of people is very important. So let us listen to our sound of the bell together. Come back to our body, embody, to be in the body, with the breath, with the body. And we quiet and calm our mind. A review of what we learned yesterday. 16 exercises of mindful breathing. Now, the Buddha was the real scientist, in the sense that the Buddha used the power of observation. Yeah? He used the power of experimentation, of observation, of analysis to understand the body and the working of the mind. So the 16th exercise of mindful breathing was taught again and again more than 200 times in this collection of the teachings of the Buddha. And it's divided into 4 categories. The first, we learned yesterday, the first 4 exercises aimed at the body. Okay? The breathing is a part of the body. And it's very sensitive. In Chinese, this is the Chinese character for breath. The upper character is tử. It means from or itself. Or itself. The lower character is tâm, which means mind or heart. So the breath is from the mind, from the heart. The breath is the mind itself, the heart itself. This is the breath. Now, if you think about it, how do you breathe when you are anxious or frightened? It's a different breathing pattern, right? How do you breathe when you are sad? How do you breathe when you are anxious? How do you breathe when you are at ease and feeling safe? And when we are dying, we also have a distinct breathing pattern. The doctor can listen, observe our breathing, and will know that this person will only have a few more hours or a few more minutes. Okay? So the breath is from the mind, but the breath is the mind itself. So our mind may be abstract, elusive, but if we learn to anchor in the body, such as being aware of the in-breath as it is, the out-breath as it is, to be aware of the body, whether we are holding a fist, whether there's tension in the shoulders, yeah, or this quickening of our heart rate, we will know the state of mind that we are in. Like somebody who's angry and you said, "You're angry." "No, I'm not angry. What are you talking about?" Right? Or if you're drunk, "No, I'm not drunk." Huh? So the body speaks the mind. It reflects the mind very honestly. And that is why the first 4 exercises will aim at the body. Most obvious. One can see, can hear, can smell, can taste, can touch, can perceive concretely. The second 4 exercise of mindful breathing deals with feelings. Okay? These 3 categories belong to the mental states. But feelings and perceptions are so important that the Buddha put them into 2 separate categories, but they're actually just one. Okay? So the feelings we learned yesterday, we learned to touch joy, experience joy in our body, in our mind, to touch and experience happiness. Now, in a dopamine nation, true to the characteristics of mana, we seek pleasure. But we ignore the danger of that kind of dopamine drive. We become addicted. We get withdrawn when we don't have that fix. And so it changes our life. A professional, a healthcare professional, can still become addicted, become paralyzed by our own addiction, opioid addiction, digital addiction, right? Sex addiction. We become paralyzed. So in this pleasure seeking that brings about illness and malady, the practice of cultivating and experience joy and happiness that is readily available in our body with our awareness and gratitude of the conditions that are still there in us and around us, this also elicits the release of dopamine, but in a healthy way. You see? If you hear something positive or you say something positive, your reward center will secrete a tiny dose of dopamine. You feel good. You experience that? A positive thought. You feel good. So it is self-produced in a moderate, sustainable way. If we want the shortcut, we go for, some kind of drugs, illicit drugs. Then we also create many more problems than this problem that we have at the present, you see. So in this pleasure seeking, the Buddha taught us about the art of happiness. of being aware of the present moment and the conditions of joy and happiness that are there, and to take care of them, to rejoice and take care and cultivate further. You see? Now, the other characteristics of mana, or the sense of self, I am, three more. One is to avoid pain. Does that sound familiar? Avoid pain. And the second one, to ignore the danger of, to ignore the goodness of pain and suffering. Okay? And last but not least is the characteristic of mana is to ignore moderation. Yes. Isn't that amazing? 2,600 years ago, without MRI, fMRI, all of these instruments, the Buddha sat quietly, walked mindfully, and understood the working of the mind that nowadays neuroscientists are just at the beginning of it. Yeah? So to address the last three characteristics of mana, the Buddha taught exercise number 7, breathing in. I am aware of the negative, painful feelings and emotions that are rising in me. Breathing out, I breathe with these waves of negative feelings, painful, uncomfortable feelings in me. Exercise number 8, breathing in, I calm my feelings. Breathing out, I calm and relax my feelings. This is the art of suffering. So in these 4 exercises that deal with feelings, we learn about the art of happiness as well as the art of suffering. To be there for what is instead of running away from it, escaping it, suppressing it, overdosing it with drugs, digital drugs, and other illicit drugs, and prescribed drugs as well. Yeah? So we go through the feelings, we learn. Now these mind states, I will go to, we're still on the power of understanding. With the interbeing, you will remember it, right? Let's go to perceptions, because the last 8 exercises also deal mainly with that, the interbeing. This is the Chinese character for perceptions. Perception. This upper part, there's this character stands for tree, mọc. This character stands for I, mục. And this one, mind or heart. This makes perception, okay? So upper part alone, the tree with the I, together that already makes one character that stands for sign. But sign plus heart and mind will make perception. Okay, perception. So we use this model, Buddhist psychology, the eyes. Yeah? The eyes will be in contact with an object. Let's say this wonderful young lady. The eye will be in contact with an object. Yeah? And then the eye contact with the object, a tree, a person, a house, for example. That's the sign. But our perception also, it depends on this heart mind down here, this store consciousness, this mind consciousness. So I can look at a person, and this person may remind me of somebody I loved and cared for in the past. Then my perception is that, oh, she's wonderful. Isn't she nice? She's friendly, right? But if I look at this person, there's some similarities in the way of being. This person reminds me of somebody I feared in the past, somebody who caused me pain in the past. So this person I look at, or the color of this person, I look and suddenly I feel my heart is racing, my body tenses up, and I guard myself. This is a threat to me. You see? So it is not just the eye that when it comes into contact with the object alone that makes the perception. No, it's the state of mind. Our mind consciousness, and especially our store consciousness, where all the experiences that we have gone through in our life and in our ancestors' life will determine how we view ourselves and how we view the world. Does it make sense? Strong determinant. So that is why I wish there were two so I can, but anyway, this is fun too. This is why it's so incredibly logical and scientific that the next 4 exercises the Buddha addressed the mind states. I mean, feelings and perceptions are also mind states. But here the Buddha talked a little bit. Exercise number 9, breathing in, I am aware of my mind as it is, okay? Breathing out, I am aware of my mind. Now, whether it is a constricted mind, a deluded mind, a dispersed mind, a narrow mind, or whether it is an expansive mind, a concentrated mind, a collected mind, a calm mind, be aware of it as it is. Many of us, we go through the day without being aware of our body, let alone of being aware of our feelings and our state of mind, right? Machines don't have to be aware of thoughts and feelings. They just automatically perform. Well, as we become more machines and we automatically live and perform, we will be oblivious of our feelings and our mind states. And again, we remember perception, it depends on the state of mind that it will determine our perception of what is, whether it is beautiful or ugly, likable or unlikable, right? And whether it will produce a feeling of love or hatred or discrimination, this state of mind. That is why the Buddha taught us to be aware of mind through being aware of the body. A constricted mind is seen and felt in a constricted body. Exercise number 10, to gladden the mind. The Buddha taught a practitioner can generate a feeling of joy and happiness anytime they want. And I do this. Before I came to this talk, I actually was lying in bed and I just breathe. Although consciously I'm not nervous. But subconsciously, you put yourself out there in front of an audience. That's one of the fears of human being, right? Fear of death, fear of divorce, fear of losing your job. Well, one of them is fear of public speaking. So I was lying down and just scanning through my body, breathing, aware of certain feelings of fear, of anticipation arising, and just breathe and relax my body and say, I love you. I love you. I am here for you. And I remembered my grandmother, who never went to school one day, who learned the alphabets from her son in his first grade. My grandmother didn't know how to write her own name. She just made a sign, like a cross sign, when she had to sign her name. Growing up, I saw my grandmother making that cross sign. My own mother, after third grade, her father said, why should she go to school? She would just write letters to boys. So she had to stay home and helped her family, you see. So I remember they are my ancestors. And so for me to have a chance to become educated, I remember my ancestors through my mother and my grandmother, that I speak not only for me, but for the community, for my ancestors. And although they were not educated as I am, they are still my greatest teachers. And that helped to calm me, helped me to be centered. See? So to be aware of mind, to gladden the mind, to concentrate our mind. Our mind as a society is a dispersed mind. The internet, all these apps are designed to grab our attention and then to scatter it, to grab it and scatter it. You go on the internet, let's say you want to read just one article or to see one video, but all of these pop-ups, right? And the things that pop up on the sidebar, and you just click, 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 and before you know it, you are somewhere else. Your attention is grabbed and then it's scattered. So, and there's this research on a wandering mind. They ask people, like they follow over a period of time. And in the midst of the day, regardless of what they're doing, they get this ping, right? Got this notification on their phone. And then they will answer what they're doing and how they're feeling at that moment. And this study came to this conclusion. They said that throughout the day, people do different activities. Now, if they're doing the activities and they're thinking of something else, inevitably, they always report that they feel unhappy. Now, if in the moment, whatever they're doing, whether the task is pleasant or not, but if they are present for that task, they're more likely to report that they're feeling happy. So the conclusion is that human mind is a wandering mind. And a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. A wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So when we're doing things, right, like in walking meditation, we learn to be fully aware of our body, of our breathing. When we walk, we're aware that we're walking. When we're bending down or standing up, we are aware. We learn, we train to be, to inhabit our body. And that actually brings about a feeling of peace, of happiness. whether we like the task or not, but we are present because the store consciousness continually generates thoughts and feelings throughout the day, throughout the night. And when we are in a state of wandering mind, we're not aware of these waves of thoughts and feelings. We're oblivious of them. And then the next moment somebody said something, somebody does something, and then you find yourself exploding and you wonder why. It's because of all these waves of thoughts and feelings have been unaware of, and now they will surge up. You see? So to learn to be aware of the mind, to concentrate it, to gladden it, and to liberate it from dispersion, from grasping, from craving. That is to be a human being. That is the power of understanding, but it is also the power of love, which is the second power. The power of love. That is how to love ourselves in a very concrete way. Not to be a cyborg, not to be an artificial intelligence, but to actually to cultivate authentic insight, to have this understanding of interbeing. Now, the brain is known as a predicting machine. We think, oh, for example, let's do an experiment. What is this? It's not Gasper, the Hungry Ghost, the whole ghost, okay? Can somebody recognize this? What's this for you? The meditation hall, okay? What else? Huh? A tent, okay? All right. So, this is the meditation hall. Can you see it? This shape of a barn. That's the sign. But is this the meditation hall? It's only a representation, an image of it, right? Just through a few lines. The meditation hall. Look at this, all of its intricate details. All of these people here. But we see only through like 4 or 5 lines. We say, this is the meditation hall. Now that's how the brain works. The brain is a predicting machine. We think that, oh, whatever the object is outside, I see it as it is. The Buddha said, I beg to differ. The 3 modes of perception. The first one is direct perception. And actually, we have that capacity within the first 50 million milliseconds, 50 milliseconds. When your eyes are in contact with something, there's no thought, perception, feeling yet. You're actually seeing it as it is. We call suchness or direct perception. But when, remember the character, when it comes to the I consciousness, I and I consciousness, and the store consciousness, there's interpretation. And the brain works in such a way that whatever we see, it only grasps 1% of it. Only 1%. And so, for example, I painted this on my birthday, the day before your arrival. Sequoia. Be real human, not cyborg. So when you look at this painting, right? Now, your eyes continually move horizontally, and it catches just a very small pixel of it, right? A snippet of it. Only 1% of this painting you see, and the brain will fill in the rest. It's called filling in the blank. So actually, our perception through our eyes, with sight, with sound, smell, taste, touch, thoughts, we only get 1% of what it is. 99% is based on our past experience. It's based on our anticipation, expectation. Okay? And the Buddha, 2,600 years ago, in a teaching called the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha said, wherever there is sign, there is deception. There is deception. And believe it or not, there is a video, they talk, about neuroscience. And the title is Your Brain, Perception, Deception. You have to watch that video. It's very informative and enlightening. Your brain, perception, deception. So this is very humbling. We are so sure of our perceptions. Visual perception, auditory perception, tactile perception, right? Thoughts, feelings. This perception about the self, we are very sure. But actually, it's only 1% of what is. And so the Buddha talked about direct perception versus representative perception. Tánh cảnh versus đối chắc cảnh. It's only a representation. That drawing is a representation of the meditation hall. But most of us, we say, that's the meditation hall. That's my husband. That's my wife. That's my suffering, and my alone, by the way. Okay? My suffering is so great. It's greater than all of your suffering. So let us breathe with the sound of the bell. And smile to our perception. Breathing in, I'm aware of a perception arising in me. And breathing out, I smile. Am I sure of this perception? And if I'm sure, check again. Xem quay cái đồng hồ. Let me look at the watch. Okay, it's 12:08. Okay. So we talked about the power of love. So we learn about feelings and perceptions. And really the roles for feelings and perceptions is for us to be aware of what is and whether that it is healthy for us to bring into our body and mind. That's the main role of emotions and perceptions. If it's dangerous, harming, we're not supposed to bring them in, And that's true with actually the GI system, gastroenterology, right? The intestinal system. We're supposed to take in only what's beneficial, nourishing, and we are not supposed to take in or we will vomit it out if it is toxic. That's the natural roles of emotions, of perceptions, of every organ in our body, actually. But as a society, as human beings, we actually are not doing that. We follow mana. In a dopamine nation, we consume what we intellectually we know is harming. The edible food, the sensory impressions that we bombard ourselves with. And the third kind of nutriment is volition, our desire, what we want to be, what we want to be in the world. And the fourth kind of nutriment is consciousness. As individual, we have our own consciousness, but again, true to the teaching of interbeing, individual consciousness is made up of the collective consciousness and vice versa, right? So this, when we have a perception, Buddha taught about xúc, tác ý, thọ, tưởng, tư. When we're in contact with an object, it has a stimulus, and then there's a sensation, then it will grab our attention. And then we pay attention to it, and we really take just 1% of the information, right? Our brain does not work for accuracy. It's more for survival purposes, just enough for us to know what it is, right? To should turn the car to the right or left, right? To approach or to avoid a noxious, dangerous stimulus. So we have this attention and we put it in this category. So it's just a representation. And then in science, they talk about when we select and organize information, then we have a perception of what it is. It's a meditation hall. It's a friend. It's a foe, right? An enemy. So, but the Buddha went deeper. Before we have perception, when we're in contact with an object, we pay attention, feelings arise. Science doesn't talk about that, but it makes sense because information that goes through our spinal cord, through our brainstem, is going to the limbic brain first, the emotional brain, before it goes to the cortical brain, right? Because the cortical brain is just recently developed. So feelings, that is why the fear, the suspicion, the hatred, right, or the grasping, that actually affects our perception. So in Buddhism, we talk about xúc, contact, tác ý, attention, thọ, feelings, tưởng, perception. It leads to perception. And science stops at perception. But the Buddha went a step further. Perceptions lead to volition. When you see something and you make meaning, perception just means assigning value and meaning to the stimulus. It leads to volition, what you want to do with it. If it elicits a pleasant feeling, a positive perception, you want to go towards it. Like a sunflower, you turn towards the sun. But if you perceive it as something unpleasant or threatening, you will step back and avoid it. So volition. Volition is the action that you want to take in thought, speech, and body. It leads to volition. And volition is a food, true to interbeing, right? The senses will feed our volition and our consciousness. But our consciousness and volition will determine what we bring in to our mind, right? If we think, oh, I want to escape pain and suffering, so I will, go to take refuge in my electronics, You see? So the input will affect the output, and the output will affect the input. So all these 4 kinds of nutriments, edible food, sensory impressions as food, volition as food, consciousness as food, they they feed each other, you see? And so if we learn to be aware of the roles of emotions and perceptions, we learn to not be swept away by them, because that is when the mechanism goes awry. It's not serving us anymore. We're bringing in toxin instead of true nutriments through our 6 sense organs. You see? And we let the perceptions dictate our volition, our actions, yeah, of the political, partisan conflicts, yeah, of the discrimination and injustices that take place in our world. It's because we let emotions and perceptions override our authentic insight. And we make decisions based on these very primal survival instincts that actually go wrong, extreme. They go extreme, you see? So the power of love is to actually to be aware of what's going on, of all of this, so that we can take care of ourselves and of our society appropriately, right? I love to share this Chinese character for soulmate. This Chinese character for soulmate in Vietnamese is tri kỷ. Tri means to remember, to know, to take care of, to master. Tri and kỷ is oneself. A soulmate is not somebody else who loves and understands and accepts you unconditionally. That's what most of us believe and seek for, and seek or search for. A soulmate is us, is you, who remember your body, thoughts and feelings and perceptions. Get to know them, take care of them, and master them. That is to learn to be a soulmate. That is to remain truly human with the power of understanding, the power of love, and finally, the power of transformation and healing. Literal translation is the power of cutting off afflictions. Yeah? Or we are afflicted with pleasure seeking, with pain, suffering, avoidance. We are afflicted with them. We're afflicted with wrong views, wrong perceptions. So to be able to transform and heal them will determine our wellness. You see, all of us, if not most of us, if not all of us, have suffered from some kind of misfortune, of some kind of abuse in our life. And really, through it can determine whether it's trauma or resilience and healing. It depends on our perception, how we take care of our body, how we take care of our mind. It will determine that. So I will let my brother, who gives the talk, the last talk, to go more about this, but just a go through of it. We take care of the mind, gladden it and concentrate it and liberate it from dispersion, from grasping, and we take care of perceptions of what is through the observation of impermanence. Pleasure is fleeting. Pain is also fleeting. if we're aware of that, we can be with it and care for it instead of drowning ourselves in it or escaping it and causing much bigger problems. See? Observe the disappearance of desire, craving, and grasping. So I would hope that from this retreat, every time you have this urge, this irresistible urge to turn on your smartphones, can you just practice with me? Put a hand on your belly button. This is a great power button right here. Just breathe and smile. Just do that 3 times. Do I really want to turn on my computer or my smartphone? Is it really necessary? Am I sure? Can I check it again? Can I just simply be? And maybe some of those times you don't have to turn on the power button on your electronics, and you just breathe and humor yourself. Observe the disappearance of desire, craving, and grasping. Know that a disposed mind is an unhappy mind. A disposed mind turns on the default mode network, brain areas that will automatically produce wandering thoughts, unhappy thoughts, when our mind is in dispersion. Okay? Default mode network generates unhappy thoughts. It strengthens mana, grasping, desiring, ignoring the danger of pleasure seeking, ignoring the goodness of pain and suffering. So I will end here, my dear ones, but if you wish, you can come and take a picture of the 16 exercises of mindful breathing, the 4 nutriments, and also the 3 powers. Because we, with awareness, now with forgetfulness, our brain is changed in structure and function. And with mindfulness, our brain can also change in structure and function. So those 3 fingers, the brain map is lost. But as they unbind the fingers, after a few weeks, the brain maps for each finger returns. That is the power of neuroplasticity. We can go into rigidity or flexibility, change for the better or addiction. It's all in our power. Okay? So remember, be real human, not cyborg. Okay? Go offline, be on life. New one I just came up with. Go offline, be on life. Okay? At ease in myself, at ease in the world. Okay? Home in myself, home in the world. So please cultivate these 3 powers of understanding, of love, and of transformation and healing, so that you can be truly human and be empowered by it. So let us enjoy 3 sounds of the bell together. What great happiness that we are here and that we have each other.